So I'm on my residents association, and we were talking about this and a number of other residents associations really not happy. And we're saying, we get that you need a priority lane on Bathurst in rush hour, but when there's no construction, it's clear sailing at other times. So why do you need it 24 hours a day? Rob, let's start with you.
It is absolute overkill. And just to be clear, I was the vice chairman of the Toronto Transit Commission when they first started considering this. When they made the final vote, I was no longer on council and no longer on the commission. And my solution at the time was to have some sort of technology that you could ticket people during rush hour for driving on the tracks on St. Clair. But in the non-rush hour times, it was road capacity that could be utilized by cars. And I think this is what I used to say back then is it was a 24-hour solution to a 6-hour problem. And that's what's going to happen with Bathurst Street. If they create a priority lane, a 24-hour priority lane, when it's not needed except at rush hour, they're ostensibly, swatting a fly with a hammer. And I think that's what council does again and again and again, oftentimes in the name of progress, in the name of thinking for the future. But the damage that was done to those small business community on St. Clair Avenue was unforgivable, and they shouldn't do it again. There's a lot of businesses, places of worship, synagogues, churches on Bathurst Street, whether it's from the lake right up to Steele's. There are a lot of small, medium businesses, retail mostly, and places of worship that rely on being able to, having access and egress, parking, and what have you, and those. That dedicated lane is going to kill their business. It's going to cause a lot of pain, and people should, to quote the sign that's behind you here in studio, they should fight back.
Yeah, well, and good luck with that, because in addition to everything, the time allowed for any kind of public consultation is limited. We'll get to that. John, what do you make of it? Do you agree with Rob?
Well, I agree with the final answer, but I get there a little differently. I think if you're going to do a designated bus lane, the red painted lanes are very effective. They're very clear. And I think you need consistency. I think the going back and forth just creates a nightmare in terms of enforcement and just people understanding. I don't like the priority bus lane on Bathurst for a couple of reasons. One, there's always a ways workaround, and the ways workaround is through neighborhoods. You're only going to push traffic over to the next street, which is Dufferin, which is a huge bus route as well. And, we've seen where these bus lanes work out in Scarborough. In the morning rush hour, the buses save 2 minutes. Well, okay, fine, 2 minutes. It's funny how the city says, 2 minutes is really valuable if it's a bus. But then when they put in bike lanes and say it's only 2 minutes extra, they minimize it. but well, we can talk about that at another time. I think it works in Scarborough as well because you have 3 lanes in each direction. So you still have 2 lanes for car travel. Whereas if you did it on Bathurst, you'd be going down to 1 lane in each direction for car travel. And then you also have the nightmare of thousands, well, maybe not thousands, but certainly tens, if not 100, different side streets that people need to access. It's a totally different construction down there in terms of how the neighborhoods are very dense. There are a lot of side streets, and to sort of knock out all those turns or potentials for turns, I think it's just going to be a disaster in the making.
You know what? It's pretty difficult now because the place where I turn almost every day, I think cars just don't understand what they're supposed to do because there's no light at the street, and I'm always worried that somebody is just going to crash into me when I'm making a legal turn. Obviously, they're ignoring. The only sign there says "Don't block the intersection," which everyone ignores anyway. And again, I keep on the one hand, and you get these pious comments from councillors reading about hollowing out of neighborhoods. And it's happening. You go anywhere, any neighborhood, and you see more empty storefronts and more all of this. And this would just do more. And there's a pretty good grocery on Bathurst where people can shop. It's an expensive grocery, but it's convenient for people in the neighborhood who need a couple of things. Well, they would probably have to shut down because how are they going to get their deliveries? I'm even wondering, there are at least one and I think maybe two food banks there. What's going to happen to them? They're going to go as well. So, Taylor, what's your view?
Yeah, well, I think it's worth distinguishing between north of Bloor and south of Bloor, because right now the situation with the streetcars south of Bloor is impossible. It's basically you don't move, at least during heavy traffic hours, which is now, 3 or 4 hours of the day. There's really no point taking the streetcar. You could walk faster than the streetcar will take you from Bloor to Lakeshore. And a lot of that has to do with you get one left car turning, and then suddenly the streetcar is waiting at the intersection, 2 or 3 lights. And that happens at every intersection. So it's terrible for transit users. It's terrible for drivers, too, because you get stuck behind the streetcar, and then you're going as fast as it's going. So they need to do something there where you can keep the streetcars moving and still have a lane for vehicle traffic as well, because right now it's just not working with everyone together. And maybe, Rob, to your point, there needs to be some system where that is in effect from rush hour or only a certain time of day. I would say let's start with a lightweight solution and see if we can get some improvement and then build off of that, rather than you don't want to have another 15 years trying to build stuff.
And to Councillor Burnside's point, I think the technology allows you the consistent enforcement. So you don't need to worry about whether people are, getting away with driving on the red bus lane. If you have technology that simply says from 7:30 to 9:30 you can't drive in this lane, and it's an automated ticket, and you might be so bold as to give people tickets for every block that they drive on the lane, so that there's a disincentive. But surely to God, at midnight, when there's very little traffic, it doesn't matter if you're driving in that lane because there's no traffic. And the concept of giving people tickets for driving in an empty lane on an empty street in the middle of the night is absurd.